Hey guys, and welcome to the first video in my Zero to Hero tank guide. So today we're going to be doing our UI, and I'm going to show you how to set up your UI using my fresh Paladin. So before we get into this, there's one thing I want to touch on quickly, and that is today a lot of the things we're going to be talking at are just general concepts. I'm going to give you my list of add-ons that I use. Of course, you can do this with ElvUI. And feel free to substitute any add-ons that you prefer, but if you're completely new to this, then these add-ons are great. They're what I use on my main Paladin, and I'm going to be showing you how to set them up. So to begin with, this is the list of add-ons that we're going to be working with today. I choose to use WoW as my add-on manager. It's really great, and it does your updates automatically. I've actually got 2 updates pending there, so I'll get them done now. So get the add-ons on the list installed. They're also in the description if you need the full list of them again. And let's start setting things up. So the first add-on we're going to take a look at today is Bartender. Bartender is a replacement for the default Blizzard bars. And 2 things I like about Bartender. Number 1 is you can move it wherever you want. Number 2, you can get a lot more buttons on the screen for keybinds. So to open the menu for Bartender, it's /BT enter. And the first thing you're going to want to do is come up here to the lock and unlock the bars. So I like to take bar 1. I personally enjoy a bar that I can take buttons, I can replace buttons for, if I'm using unused items or consumables and stuff. Having a bar that directly takes items and keybinds is really good to me. So we're going to take this. I like to split it into 2 rows and have this central in my screen. And anything that is a core rotational ability for me will go on this bar. I like to bring the padding down a little bit. So maybe 2, I've split it into 2 rows. We don't want the Blizzard UI. So if you go down to the Blizzard art bar, I like to disable this. The experience bar, so if you've installed Titan panel, this is a little cool trick you can do with your XP bar, is you overlay it on Titan panel. And for some reason, it likes to sit between the text and the background. So I increased the scale, and this is the best place I found to put my XP bar. And I'm going to hold down Shift here. Might need to be just slightly smaller. We want to have it the width of our screen. Holding down Shift removes the clipping. Yeah, cool. So at 1.9 for me, that's the width of my screen. And I just overlay it onto this bar here and turn on click through. So now when we do lock that, I've got my XP bar as part of Titan panel. Okay, so now we've got lots of other bars. So we've got pet bar, stance bar. For me personally, I put stance bar just above my my party frame, and we're going to put our character frame, in this window here, and we're going to have our target here. And a lot of the things you want to do with your tank UI is you need to be a lot more aware of your health. So we'll go here, our target will go here, and we'll have things like target to target, but we'll look at that in a minute. For now, I'm just going to whack PallyPower out of the way. So we can configure as many bars as we want now. So for me personally, micro menu and bag bar, I do not use these. I know the hotkeys to open them. Reputation bar, we're going to turn off because we'll have that on our character frame if we need it. And now it just becomes a point of looking at how many bars that you're going to want. So if we take a look at Dev's UI here to see how this is set up. So I've got bar 7, bar 6, bar 2, and bar 5. So I actually use 4 different bars here to make this brick. And this is completely up to you how you want to manage this. Personally, I like having everything there. I can glance down and check what's going on. So let's set up 4 bars down here in the bottom for us to use, as well as the 2 sidebars. So I'm going to show you how to set that up. So the first thing we want to do is we want to take the bars, we want to enable them. So we're going to use 6, we're going to use 7, 5 appears to be free. And what else is in use? Bar 8, we can enable that. So that gives us 4 bars to work with. Let's put these in a somewhat logical order. So 5, 6, 7, 8. So if we go to 5, we want to set the padding to be the same so these line up properly. So we can do 5, we can do 6, setting the padding to 2, 7, and 8 are already set up that way. And we can stack a brick down the bottom, and they snap together really cleanly actually, like that. So now we've got this big brick of buttons down here that we can use. I don't think it's centered properly. Where's my character? No, it's this one that's not centered. There we go, it snapped into the middle, beautiful. and we've got the 2 on the side as well. And that, in essence, is how I set up my bartender. We'll go through, we'll keybind all these, and we'll put all our abilities down later. But now we've got plenty of buttons to use. We can keybind these exactly how we like. And that is Bartender. Okay, so moving on to the next add-on that we're going to look at today, Shadowed Unit Frames. Now, what Shadowed Unit Frames is a pretty customizable replacement for party and health frames. I don't use all aspects of it. Generally, I'm using Blizzard raid frames as my party frames. Now, one of the main issues I see with brand new tanks is you guys will leave your health in the top left corner here. To me, you're almost blind as to where your health is. So let's fix that. So /SUF Shadowed Unit Frames to open the menu here. And we're going to go through to enabled units first. And we're going to turn off boss frames and arena frames. And I'm going to disable party because we are not using party frames. And we're going to come through to general, and we're going to untick lock frames. Bringing this down, so here we have the player frame from Shadowed Unit Frames, and we want to place the player roughly where we want it. Coming across to the target unit configuration and the frame, and we're going to add an offset here. So it's currently 50, so this will depend on your screen resolution, but let's crank that up to 400 and see where it puts our target. A little bit too far. Let's wind that back to 300. Okay, now it's starting to look not too bad. I'm going to bring the scale up a little bit to maybe 120, and I'm going to do the same for player. So coming to unit configuration, player frame, bring the scale up to 120, which is looking a little better. So now let's just see how that looks when it's locked. Cool. So that gives you a much better view of your health as you're checking where your cooldowns are at. We've also got our auras here, and I'm much happier with that. So the next thing I want you to do is come into the interface, and we're going to include Blizzard raid frames. Hang on, let's invite Dev to a group so we can see our raid frames. Beautiful. These are the settings that I use to get the frames nice and clean. So I keep groups together. Horizontal or vertical groups, completely up to you. Power bars, turned on. I think it's really important to see how your group's mana is doing. I really like class colors. It's a really nice way. So like if you know like the Druid is in trouble, you can just see the Druid already being orange. Not a fan of the border on this. I think the border is really ugly, so I like to turn that off. And then showing debuffs should always be on, and it's up to you if you want to have dispellable debuffs on. Feel free to look through the settings here, and you can do a lot of customizable stuff to these bars. I might even like adjust the height a little bit, maybe bring that up to like 60. Play around with the size, make it slightly larger. Kind of get it just how I want it. I don't want to use my pet bar here actually, so I'm going to disable that. I might even bring the target back a little bit, so that to move the target it was frame, and the offset, maybe just bring that back to like 250 now we've made it slightly larger. Okay, so that is Shadowed Unit Frames, and now we're starting to get a UI that looks a little bit more usable, lots of nice information about our health in front of us. Okay, so the next add-on we're going to do is PallyPower. Now this is a really quick one. So I position mine on the left hand side of the frame. So clicking on the little green or red dot locks or unlocks PallyPower. So green to move. I'll position it at the top of my frames here so it grows down. Shift right click to open options. I don't like the seal button and I don't like the Righteous Fury. The big one that you need to go through and change is salve in combat. If you don't have salve in combat and somebody goes down and gets rezzed and you can't resalve them, it's a pain. Also, big thing when you have feral druids, often a feral druid will tank something, and once they're done tanking, they'll be in cat form, they'll call for salve. If you can't resalve them because of PallyPower, it's this setting here, make sure this is turned on. Other than that, that's basically PallyPower setup. We can talk about assigning blessings, I guess, which is something that's really good to know. So when you're in a raid environment, so if Dev's on 30-minute kings, and I want to get a sanctuary, say, on Angelin from dev. So you go to the person that you're signing the blessing to, so who wants to get buffed with the blessing, and then we go to the Paladin you want to buff it. And apparently I'm too low level to get sanctuary, so let's do a wisdom instead. If we go across to dev's PallyPower here, you'll see he's on big kings on paladins, but has been given wisdom on Angelin. So that's how you do 10-minute blessings if you're the pally responsible for setting up PallyPower. Before we go, one last little tip with PallyPower. I've seen people trying to assign kings buffs by rolling the mouse wheel across every slot or clicking on every slot to get it to kings. You hold down shift and roll your mouse wheel, it'll do the entire line. Super quick and a good little tip to know for PallyPower. And the last add-on that we're going to go over today is Details Damage Meter, which is also our threat meter. So I use 3 windows of details. I use a damage meter, a healing meter, and also the threat meter. So once details is installed to open a new one, it's /details space new. Will give us a second window, and right-clicking on the header here, switching to healing, we can drop this in and hopefully line these up, make them the same size, snap them together. Cool. And drop that in the corner. Once that's done, we can lock them both down. And one is slightly larger than the other, but you can spend time making it perfectly fit. Now, if you want to have a look at the entire damage list of who's doing what, once it's locked onto the bottom of the screen, grabbing the header and dragging it up will give you a full spread of everybody in the raid. Nice little tip there. The last thing we're going to do as well is another details new, and this is going to be our threat meter. So right click and tiny threat, which is just hanging off the side for some reason. Now I have seen some absolutely atrocious placements of threat meters, and this is one thing that I think is extremely important to think about. Your UI is your own and you can put it wherever you want, but I've seen DPS before that have pulled threat, you know, hundreds of times during a raid night. And when I look at their UIs, I see a screenshot and they've got their threat meter and it's like this down in the bottom corner. And it's so out of the range of view where in the corner, their eyes are up here scanning the room, threat meter down here, they're not checking it. I'm slightly strange. I like to have my threat meter about here because my eyes when I'm tanking are mostly working in this section of the screen. I'm scanning, I'm looking, you know, out there, I'm seeing where people are standing. In my peripheral vision, I can see my tiny threat. So let's just talk about some little more options you can do here. So if we go into the settings, the options panel, and don't get overwhelmed, I know it's a lot, we're just going to change one little thing here. We're going to come down to plugins, and we're going to go to the tiny threat options. So plugins on the left, you see tiny threat, we're going to click options here. Update speed, we're going to drag that to as small as possible. This is how fast it pulls updates, and 0.2 seconds is as fast as they come in. I really like to have player color enabled. Now this is going to allow us to see, is it a hunter that's at the top and you can call Hunter's Fane if you're raiding? Is it a warlock that you can call for a shatter? Or is it something like a warrior that doesn't really have a way to drop his threat? I use a custom class color too. So I set myself to hot pink. And this is really good if you play DPS as well. Mostly because if you see a hot pink bar climbing up, you know you're near the top and you might need to check your threat meter. More of a DPS thing, but something that's really good. If you're tanking, are you in the top 3? You know, are you even on the threat? Super good to know where you're at. Top one is player color, bottom one is class colors. I turn them both on. And that is the basis of my super quick to set up and ready to go Tank UI. Hope that helps, guys. Feel free to follow along and use the same concepts in ElvUI. If you enjoyed this video, I've got plenty more coming in my tank series. This is the first of many videos. We're going to be looking at keybinds and macros in the next videos. So if you like the sound of that, make sure you're subscribed, and I'll see you in the next one.